Welcome along, my aspiring allies, and thank you for joining me on this most recent episode of the Speaking of Inclusion podcast. This is the show where we talk about sometimes the often taboo or complicated topics, and we get ourselves used to that fear that we all have of putting our foot in it and get a little bit more confident to get over that. So today I'm bringing you an episode that I recorded with the fantastic Trish Rimmer. And Trish is the menopause coach. So she is a specialist in helping predominantly women dealing with the menopause and their emotional well-being. Now, I do want to call out, we have had this conversation through the lens predominantly of women, but we do at every step want to call out that we understand that the menopause is something that will affect anybody who is born with a female reproductive system. So we acknowledge that up front, and we don't want to be exclusive on that. And we also want to call out that actually, if you're just in the proximity of someone who might be experiencing menopause, it's something that's going to impact you too. So just as a caveat up front, we do mention that on several occasions, but we want to make sure that we're really clear going into this, that even though sometimes the language we use can be around the word woman or women, we are also definitely meaning anybody who was born with a female reproductive system who will be experiencing the symptoms of menopause. So Trish, the menopause coach. So she has got qualifications up to her eyeballs. So she has a very, very well academically researched background in the conversations that we've been having. But she has got this real lived experience of her own menopause journey that she's really bringing to the people that she coaches in her world, and in about empowering women and people who experience menopause to really kind of understand their own midlife journey. She talks in great detail around her own challenges that she faced through the health systems in really understanding what menopause was and how it was impacting her, and also then the very real experiences she had in the workplace trying to manage her own symptoms. And as someone who is also on the menopausal journey as well, like hearing her talk about her experiences was really a huge relief to me, to really kind of have those moments of thinking, oh yeah, like I'm not going quietly crazy inside my own brain. This is something that's happening. There is a reason that all of this is happening. And even though there are times where I feel like I can't separate the kind of emotional and physical symptoms from like the intellectual understanding that it's happening, like it's okay. And the more that we talk about this and the more we have these conversations, for me, I think it's an even better place that we can be in to understand that actually menopause is a whole body experience, and that's what we're talking about today. And the more that we can share that with one another, the more we can realize it impacts us all so hugely in so many different ways. It isn't simply just like hot flushes. It isn't simply the cessation of having a period. It's so much more than that. And I'm delighted to have Trish on talking about the details and kind of the science of menopause and how it impacts us as well. So yeah, we're talking all about the physical, mental, and emotional transition that we go through as people who experience the menopause. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to bring to you in this episode of the Speaking of Inclusion podcast, Trish Rimmer, the menopause coach.
Okay.
So how's your week been?
Week's been brilliant. Except I forgot it was a bank holiday. So everything got on top of me because I was making plans for Monday, which I had to move to Tuesday. And also being a mom, it's also a midterm holiday. So
Right.
think about something to do with the kid to keep them busy.
Yeah, they like entertaining, don't they?
Yeah, you don't realize that school is plays a lot more role than just education because they have something to do. They get to meet friends and all that. But when there's no school, you're going, oh, I have to take time off. Then you're working and you're running a business. It just seems like you're trying to juggle
Yeah.
everything and
Yeah.
make everyone happy.
Where does everything fit? Because we've all got the same number of hours in a
Oh,
day, and
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. I think dad is trying, but still, we're getting to that. We're still at the stage of mom, what we're doing most of the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So,
Yeah. God. And that's actually kind of relevant to what we're talking about today as well, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
like where do we find the time for, you know, all of the things with all of the roles that we play? And yeah.
Yeah, supposed to be an equal society, but it's getting better. But as I said, I've got friends who went to university, went to Harvard, graduated top of the class, like first class, and they are still making more money than their partners.
Mm.
But they're still the ones that go, there's no milk in the fridge, there's no bread in the bread bin, and the
Yeah.
school calls them first, the kid is sick. It still
Yeah.
hasn't changed. It's just it's getting there, so I won't complain. It's still a lot better than it was years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I think that's going to resonate so hard with so many people though, because like that's just a universal story, isn't it, really?
It is. And even though I tend to say I have sort of evolved and gone a long way from where my mom was and her
Mm.
identity as a woman and identity as the mom, the female in the house and all that. It's still there in my psyche where I still feel like as a mom, there are
Mhm.
just some things I should do. So I can't even actually just say society. I think mentally, us as women have not really evolved from that sense of responsibility that we are the homemakers. Doesn't matter how successful we are in our career, even though societies do judge mom who have a career more than they would judge a man who had a career that took them away from the family, we still put that pressure on ourselves. It's
Mm.
just us as well. And when I
Yeah.
work with women, that's one of the things that come out. Sometimes there's no one actually pushing them to do those things, but they
Yeah.
still feel like I have to do it because, yeah, so it's just
Well,
me.
we're all a product of our environment, aren't we? And, you know,
Yes.
there's centuries of conditioning that we arrive into and we absorb and it
Yeah.
internalize. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get into all of that, I was thinking this morning, I was like, when did we first meet? And it was through our local Chamber of Commerce, wasn't it? That we kind of
Yes, I've
started to
met.
gravitate in one another's circles at networking events. But it
Yeah.
wasn't really until we kind of had our first conversation, like this one-to-one conversation, that I learned so much about you. And so the small snippets I'd met of you at networking, thinking, yeah, this person's really cool. So then having a proper conversation with you where I was just like, yes, to everything you were saying. I'm like, all of this. And I thought, oh, we need to have, you know, we need to get you on the podcast and we need to have this conversation. So thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you for having
coming
me.
along and
Yeah.
doing this. I think it's amazing. But what I think would be really awesome is to kind of like almost like recreate that moment when I first started to learn about you for everyone else to hear, because you know, you've got so much kind of behind you in your story and your journey, I guess, to where you are now. So just for the benefit of everybody, would you mind resharing all of that? Because I think it's just great to learn about you.
Okay. So right now I am a menopause and emotional well-being coach. And I became a coach from my own personal experience, my own menopause experience, which for me I felt came out of the blue, which I'd never heard about the term perimenopause until I was actually going through it.
Mhm.
And as I learned more in this field, until 2019, menopause was not even on school curriculum. So we learned about puberty, we learned about pregnancy and the whole, but there was nothing about menopause. And I guess, like most girls, my idea of menopause was, oh, it's going to get hot
Mm.
and I'm going to stop having baby and a menstrual cycle, which I guess for most people, that was what they knew about menopause. Because
Yeah.
if you go online and say what's the definition of menopause, it says is the cessation of a menstrual cycle. So I was expecting that, to be
If
honest.
only that were true, right? If it
If
just one day
that
stopped.
was the
Oh.
only thing, life would be brilliant, wouldn't it? So yeah, so there I was happily building a career. My background is in corporate governance, and I've got my master's in international corporate governance. And I had built a career where I was a consultant, and I was a consultant to multinationals like UNICEF, UN, and getting involved in local projects in South America, working with indigenous people. Loved it. Career was brilliant, going well, and started experiencing all the symptoms where I started having anxiety. Don't know why. Being extremely forgetful, like really scatterbrained, disorganized, and could not. I used to go into meetings so worried that please don't ask me a question because I can't remember what I read 5 minutes ago. And my job was to read a 20-page document and summarize it to the board members. And I was really confident at what I did. I was good at what I did. And now I cannot even remember the name of you. Introduce yourself to me, and within 10 minutes, I forgot your name. And I was hoping there's no situation you get to ask me why I have to call your name. And
Yeah.
yeah, it got so bad. I used to put people's name and something that reminded me about who they were to be able to remember people. These were things I never had to do. So there was the anxiety, then there was extreme fatigue, which was really, really bad. You know, you wake up after full night's sleep or sometimes 12 hours sleep, and you feel lively in the morning, and by 11 it's like you're a balloon that's been popped. It just goes down really fast. Like it was fatigue at a level I'd never had. So I had all the symptoms. Then there was low moods. Then with all what was happening, there was lack of motivation, and kept on going from doctors. I went to doctors in South America, in Barbados. They couldn't find anything. In Guyana, they got up to the point they did a Zika test because they could not find anything.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we can't find anything wrong. So maybe you have Zika. And since Zika was in that part of the world, they did a Zika test. Now, then we went to Miami, and I thought, I'm in a different place. I'll go to the doctors again, told them all my symptoms. Oh no, maybe you need an MRI. Yeah,
Wow. So
I
the
was,
full medical works.
these full medical works, and I was paying for it. And I remember asking my friend who is working in a research center for Alzheimer's, saying, can you have Alzheimer's at 43?
Mm.
And she went, very rare. So that was all the thought that was going through my head
Yeah.
because I didn't know what was
Well,
happening.
I can totally understand why you would kind of catastrophize almost, because that's a lot of, medical attention to not get a lot of answers, right?
Yeah. And
For
that's why
something that actually.
it is scary. And a lot of the women I work with that come to me for support have health anxiety. And I'm not shocked because I practically had one, because you're having all the symptoms and it is not your usual, and they just build. It's not like one comes and goes away. No, it's like you're struggling with anxiety, then the low mood comes, then you start struggling with fatigue as well, then you have this brain fog. It just sort of piles up, and it's like you are on this roller coaster and you're like, I am dying. There's something seriously wrong. So, and that's why I used to go to the doctors. I go, there's something seriously wrong. This is not me.
Mm,
And I think doctors don't like there's something seriously wrong because they
yeah.
couldn't work with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had the whole test. Then moved to the UK, and I got a job, and I wasn't coping. It was just getting so difficult, and I wasn't confident.
Mm.
And that's one of the things that I found out. Like, I always term myself as a really confident person. I walk into a room and I'm like, I've got this. And my confidence was at at an all-time low. And that was a shock to me because I never realized that that confidence I had was tied to the confidence I had in who I was. And now I didn't know who I was, like skill-wise. It's like I didn't feel like I was confident to do the job that I knew I could do
Yeah.
or I used to do. So all that would just steamroll. And at the end, I made a difficult decision to leave my career, which I'd spent years building. So yeah, I'm one of those statistics. Statistics says 1 in 10 women leave their job due to the impact of menopause. I'm part of that statistic. So I'm really, really passionate about helping other women stay in work. And so later, I found out after reading and searching, I found I was going through perimenopause. So for years, 3 years, no one mentioned the word perimenopause, all because I didn't have the typical common symptoms of menopause. I didn't have the night sweats. I didn't have the hot flushes. I think if I'd had the hot flushes, I would have thought about my mom. But I didn't have the hot flushes. Uh, I did not have the sleepless. No, the common symptoms they tell you to look. I didn't have that. I had all the emotional symptoms. But then looking back, my mom was sane. My mom changed from this outgoing, fun-loving person to almost being a total recluse. Like she cut away from friends, and now I understand her better. I did not understand her at that time, and I don't think she even knew what she was going through because I still had a regular cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So and yeah, that was my story. And when I found out what I was going through and how I had to suffer for 3 years and I had to self-diagnose myself
Yeah.
before going to doctors to get the right support. They were supportive once I'd got the diagnosis, but before then it was you're depressed, yes, antidepressants. And they got really upset after 3 times of me not taking antidepressants. And so it's, I feel like most women now need to educate themselves. And that's why I decided a lot of women will be going through what I'm going through or what I went through. And so when I sorted everything out, um, refused antidepressant, found a natural way of managing my own symptoms, I decided to train in all those disciplines that helped me, those
Yeah.
therapies that helped me. And that's how I became a menopause coach. So that's my
Yeah.
story
No,
today.
and I think that's amazing because what stands out for me is that you know, it was a worldwide healthcare experience that you had. And that's quite unusual, isn't it, really? I think most
Oh,
people would be used to coming up against the inequities that exist in their own kind of healthcare
yeah.
system of their home country. Whereas you kind of, I can totally understand how if you're having a similar experience as you move to different places with different healthcare setups, to still constantly receive that lack of information, really. I find that quite startling, you
It's
know.
shocking. The research shows that over 41% of universities in the UK do not have menopause on their no, medical curriculum. So doctors just go through the whole training
Mm,
without learning anything about
mm,
menopause. While
yeah,
anybody born with a female reproductive system will go through menopause, and
yeah,
half the society, almost half societies are women or females with reproductive system doesn't
yeah.
know. So I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how that can be skipped. And
Well, I mean, we
what
do
I,
understand, don't
well,
we? Because it's
yeah, we do.
patriarchy.
We all
But
we
but
have.
also, yeah, but that's the point, right? But this is the impact. You know, and this is why I think I don't want to go off on a tangent because I want to keep it in this space, but this is the impact of not having representation of, like you say, people. And I also want to call out, thank you for saying that, people who are born with a female reproductive system, because actually there'll be people who will identify as non-binary or gender fluid or other minority genders, um, who are born with a female reproductive system. So even though we're talking and we're using the language of women, we recognize that's the majority of people would identify as women, but actually we want to recognize this impacts anyone who's born with a female reproductive system. And I think it's really important that we shine a light on that, and that the system is not designed with any of us in mind.
No. They did a research of medical books worldwide, and about 50%, 59% had no mention of menopause. It's just something that was brushed over. And I'm like, sometimes I want to go, I get really upset. Like, I guess if pregnancy was not going to continue the human race, probably be brushed over, because it's only female with reproductive systems that get pregnant as well. But because without that, the human race will die out. So it benefits everybody.
Okay, so that's why that's in medical textbooks.
That's why that's in medical books.
But isn't that it? Oh, so now you've served your purpose for continuing the existence of the human race. Thank you very much. If you could just go over in the corner and have a quiet breakdown, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
I guess that's the memo. Yeah, you're done. Your service to the human race is done.
But then this, I guess, coming back to it as well, and this is kind of the conversation we almost started to have, isn't it? No wonder, again, generally women have that kind of internalized mindset of we are always acting in service, because it's the role and the functions that are placed upon us, not necessarily by any particular person, but by the systems that we navigate. The expectation is that we will, perform the role that is placed upon us, and we, whether we like it or not, to some extent fall into the duty of playing that role. And as much as some of us really try to rally hard against it, it's a chore.
It is a chore. It's as I said, we're all conditioned. So irrespective of how we think or we are, so we've moved from that way of thinking. Still there, is still part of the conditioning, and it will take a long time. I don't see it in my generation totally being wiped out, but I do appreciate that we have come a long way from where we used to be. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about working in the menopause field, and when I go to organization, I give menopause awareness training, is because less than 50 years ago, most women were homemakers. They didn't work. Now there are more women in universities than men. There are a lot of women who they bring the higher income into their home more than their partners. But still, society is not moving that way. And so they then do all this, go to work, only for them to find themselves in the same position that I was in. Because I took the usual, because right now I'm happy that there's a lot more spotlight on menopause. But the narrative is also, once you get on HRT, you're sorted. And I bought into it, because I just, as soon as I found out, when I went to the doctors, I was like, I want HRT. I've done all my checks. So I did all my checks, my risk, my benefits, everything. I went in, and they were supportive, and I got the HRT immediately prescribed. And I was expecting the same magic, like, fix me. No. I gave it a full, I kept on asking, like, oh, how long do I need to wait? They said 8 weeks, gave it 8 weeks. The anxiety was still there. The low moods was still there. I was still crying on adverts. That for me, that was shocking. I'm not a crying person. Yeah. And there's this mushy advert and I'm crying. Oh, that's so sweet. Totally not me. So HRT helps, but when it comes to that emotional part of it, for most women, it doesn't. So it leaves women frustrated or feeling there's something wrong with me. All my friends seem to be using HRT and they say it's magic, it changed their life. Why is it not doing the same for me? And so when I do speak to women, I tell them it helps, it does. And for the lucky 60%, it will help with your emotions. But there are some people like myself, it doesn't. And I
Yeah.
had to use that extra. And I think the British Menopause Society and all the International Menopause Society are now recognizing that there are some women that would need that extra intervention to get their emotion sorted, and to get that anxiety, depression, all those roller coaster of emotions that come with it. And also, I want women to be aware that because you're not having night sweats, because you're not having all those symptoms, when you start noticing you're forgetting more, the fatigue, don't do what I did, which is, oh, maybe I'm a bit stressed out. Maybe work is too, we have those excuses. Maybe the kids are just a bit more stressful. You
Yeah.
give yourself all those excuses. We don't sit down and go. So I tell people, just sit down, step back and say, last week, I could remember all this. I could read a whole book and remember everything about it. And now I read 3 pages and it just goes. Those are the first signs of perimenopause, which no one speaks
Yeah.
about. Yes.
And what stood out for me as well earlier on when you were talking about it, it was kind of like one of the, I think the phrase you used was like, you noticed the change in yourself. And I think that's something, I think what I'm hearing from what you're saying is like, we all know, like, there's no such thing as normal, but we know what's
Yeah.
normal for us,
Yeah.
right? And I guess what I'm hearing from you is that request, that, or the invitation for people to kind of like, yeah, sit down, take a minute and think, well, what's normal for me and what's different right now?
Yeah.
And like, is this, if this is a sudden shift or something that's kind of happening, like, allow yourself some time to think about that.
Yeah. Yes. Because
Yeah.
we tend to beat ourselves up. I did beat myself up thinking maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe I'm doing a bit of this too much, maybe I'm doing a bit of that too much, and it's not. So, and then there is all the narrative as well going, oh, the average age for perimenopause is 45. And there are doctors actually turning women away, going,
Mm,
oh, you're 43, you're too young, you're 44, you're too young. I've had clients as young as 39.
mm,
And I go, if you want to do that, then every girl will hit puberty at a certain time.
yeah.
It varies, it's biology. It varies for
Yeah.
each
It's
person.
bodies, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
body, you know.
Yeah.
We'll all be dying at a certain time. We'll all,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah. If we could predict these things.
So average means
Love that.
majority. So when I talk to women, I say, go to the doctor. And if they say you're not 45, tell them there's the word average. It doesn't say fixed. You have to be 45 before you hit perimenopause. And you have to be 51, which is the average age for menopause. Because there are some women that I work with, they are in their 60s. They're still having a cycle.
Mm,
And they have women who are already 40 and they hit menopause already.
mm,
So there is no fixed age
yeah.
for this. So doctors need to be aware that there is no fixed age. It's
Yeah.
just that's the age on
It's,
average.
yeah, a
Most people
generalized
generalized.
period.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So when my thing is women should be empowered with the right information.
Mm,
And so when I do menopause awareness training for organization, it's just if you are aware what's happening and you take stock, you will be able to mitigate those impacts. You would not get to the point I got to, and to the point a lot of women get to, where they feel there's no way for them to continue with their career and
mm,
have to walk away. Now I'm confident enough that I can go back to my
yeah.
career, but this for me is a passion, is
Yeah.
something I love doing. And also knowing that I will help a lot of women not to get on antidepressants, because once they get on HRT and it doesn't work, you go to your doctor and say, I'm still struggling. The next thing you offer is antidepressants.
Mm,
So a lot of women are on HRT, on antidepressants as well.
right.
And you don't need to, because then
I was going to ask you, because when you were saying earlier when it wasn't working for you and you were like, there are other solutions, I wanted to say, what are the other solutions?
yeah, you don't need to, because they are other solutions. We all know that antidepressants, not that I have anything against it, it's helps some people, and some people
Yeah.
really actually need it. But the Harvard research shows that they're supposed to be short-term use. So if you're really, really down in the dumps, you use it for the short term, but it's not long-term use. And a lot of people tell you, I've been on it for 10 years. And then the side effect, it becomes addictive. But not just that, after a while, it stops working. It's your brain, your body adapts. After a while, it stops working and they go, I've increased it to the maximum. It's not working anymore. That's very
Yeah.
common. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the alternative is actually working with your brain naturally to increase your serotonin and your dopamine. And that's what I did. I was like, since I started getting this anxiety, and you say, though it was hormonal decline, the estrogen decline that affected the neurons in my brain, that caused me to have the inability to regulate my emotions. All this happened naturally. Why can't I fix it naturally? And that was my quest. And I used cognitive behavioral therapy that worked a bit, but I was still having issues. Then the biggest shift for me was hypnotherapy. And since then, I learned about NLP, which was the last bit. So I trained, I'm a certified cognitive therapist, hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner. And we all, if I have anxiety, I do my anxiety differently. You do yours differently. We have different triggers and the way we process. So when I work with people, I sort of tailor it to each individual. And you get the results faster because you've actually just reversed your brain to where it was before without having that medical intervention and no side effect. And I think my level of happiness, because you don't realize that everything is tied to your emotion, but my level of, when I'm happy now, I'm like really into it, happy. And it can last me the whole day. It's not forced. But when I was going through that, I used to go to parties, everybody's jumping and happy. And I was smiling and it was pretend. It was exhausting because I didn't feel anything. I got to the point I was numb. So it's the worst thing. I think emotional challenges makes menopause even worse than it should, menopause symptoms worse than it should be. And so for me, that's my specialty, helping women with that. The empowerment part is just so that women feel like I'm in control, because the worst thing, which I did, was like feeling like you're not in control of anything. And yeah, I feel the higher women are in their career and the more organized they are, the more of an impact this has on you. Yeah, and I ask men, they go, oh, but why are we talking? And I said, you remember when your mom started calling every kid's name to get to you? It happens. You go, yeah. I remember my mom, she would call, Trish, then you come, no, not you, your sister, go call your sister. And we just used to go, oh, she's frazzled again. But now looking back, she never did that like a year before she started doing that. And so I tell people, and then you get the guys going, yeah. I said, yeah, you could do that when you're a full-time mom. You could say, sorry, I wanted to call your sister. But if you send the email to the wrong person, or you have investors and you send in the wrong email, you could lose millions of pounds. So it's the level. So our moms could go through it and just wing it. If they had no choice.
I
But
guess it manifests in a different way for different people, is what we're kind of saying, isn't it? Because I don't want to kind of find ourselves in a position where we're kind of creating a hierarchy of like capability for women, but it is a case of like really people who will be impacted by this, just knowing who they are, how they kind of navigate their own worlds, and noticing what's changing, and then recognizing the implications of that for themselves.
yeah,
And kind of, and I guess kind of figuring out like what I'm hearing from you is there are so many combinations of
process. Yeah.
solutions that will work for people in a very different way, depending on their combination of symptoms and experiences. And
It
we
is.
don't have to get caught in that funnel of, oh, okay, well, you're this age, these are the symptoms, here's your HRT, see you later.
Yeah.
It's broader than that, and we can take time to really be it with ourselves and figure out, well, what do I need to make the best of, quite frankly, a really shit situation.
Unavoidable situation,
Yeah.
because people have asked me, is there any way to avoid menopause? I'm like, if you find out, please let me know,
Mm.
because it's unavoidable. If it was, as coming back to the definition, if it was just the cessation of menstrual cycle, not being able to have kids, I was done.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids. It's not, I wasn't looking at having kids. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
For most women, who wants to have a menstrual cycle every month and go through the
Oh,
whole, it's not like something we're enjoying. But after after I
great.
realized the impact of menopause, that it not only affects just my reproductive system, which is what I was made to understand, it affects my brain, it affects my skin, which loses close to 80% of its elasticity after
Can I
5
just share something with you on that, right? And I don't know if I told you this when we spoke before, but I had a moment when I can't even remember where I was, but I was in a public toilet and I was using the hand dryer, and I was just like, when did my skin start moving so much? I was like, it felt like it was my skin was gonna be blown off the side of my hands. It was just wobbling around all over the place. And I was like, whose hands are these? And at what point did that happen? And then you kind of go up your arm a bit and you're like, it's all of me, it's all of my skin. And I just stood there for ages, mesmerized by what the hell was going on with my hands in this hand dryer. And I just still can't get over it, that moment of like, oh yeah, like oh, this is
Oh, yeah,
real.
it's shocking. I've had someone took a video of me giving a talk at one of the companies, and they took it from the side, and I realized whenever I smiled, I had a double jaw. I was like, when did that happen?
Yeah.
So it's
Who did
yes,
that?
even though I know the science, it just seems like you go to sleep and something new happens.
Yeah.
My hair used to be, I never did any, I put all sorts on my hair. I used to have thick hair, and it just seems like it happened overnight.
Mhm.
And my hair was gone. There was no volume, nothing. And it was just limp.
Yeah.
So you have all that. Then you have osteoporosis, where you lose 30% of your bone density in the first 5 years. And you're like, why are they saying it's menstrual cycle?
Yeah.
That's the
That's the
least of my
least.
worries at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I don't care about that.
About
I'm
that,
really
yeah.
worried about whatever's happening everywhere else. Yeah.
So
And
all
no
the
one
all,
prepares you for this.
no one does. So you look at all the impact, every function, almost every function in the female body is impacted by the decline of estrogen from
Mm.
menopause. You start getting plaque. They found out 1 in 3 women start getting plaque in their brain. That's why there are more women that have Alzheimer's than men. And then
Mm.
you have, as when your estrogen drops, your blood vessels and the valve to your heart start hardening as well. So more women die from heart attacks. Nobody is talking about all
Yeah.
this. So you're thinking, I think the definition needs to change.
Yeah. It's
So
a
I
little
do
bit
use the word.
simplistic. Yeah.
So I use the word change,
Mm.
because more than menopause, unless they change the definition of menopause, because it is a change in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a change in everything. And I also tell people, when you're going through menopause, your GP or your doctor should be your best friend, because menopause means your body is not functioning at the optimal level it used to function. So
Mm.
any condition you're predisposed to that's been in the background start coming to the forefront. So it's not all symptoms
Mm.
that you experience are just menopausal symptoms, because that's also a problem women do. Oh, it's menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's a whole
And that
chain.
makes sense. That makes absolute sense. And I get, and it's not, and I guess as you're saying that, what I'm kind of like starting to feel and think is that actually it's not static either. It's not like you said, it's not as simple as just a collection of symptoms. These things are just going to vary and change. And I remember when we spoke last, and you said about the brain chemistry piece, like the impact um, of our hormones on our brains. And I think you said something, and correct me if I've misremembered this, but in the sense of like the difference again generally between kind of male and female bodies. With women, it kind of goes off a cliff all at once.
Yeah,
Whereas I think, was it the testosterone in men, there's that phase, it's
testosterone. Yeah, so
gradual.
yeah, with men, it's that's their main hormone, and it gradually declines. But with women, you get to menopause and you lose 80% of your main hormone, estrogen. And so it's like you're fine, you're riding fine, and it just drops. There's no one that would say, oh, it was fine. Then there's a massive drop that wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why it hits women more than it would hit men, because a gradual is, you sort of adapt. Our body is very intelligent. Even though we think we're in control, the body is also a living organism on its own. So it will rally, and it will rally if it's gradual. But when it's a drop, your body goes into shock as well. So
Yeah.
I call menopause symptoms shock symptoms. It's like your
Mm.
headlight going, something's wrong, something's wrong. So it just keeps on giving you all the
Yeah.
symptoms. Yeah.
It is
So
a bloody shock as well, I tell you.
I don't want to go through menopause. I'm happy to have a menstrual cycle till I die after learning.
I mean, if we get a choice.
If I had a choice, like,
Yeah.
oh, go through menopause and you don't have a menstrual cycle, no more pads, no more. And with what I know now,
Mm.
um, give me a menstrual cycle till I die.
Yeah.
Because it's not about reproductive system. Least of your worries. Totally.
Yeah.
I have loads of clients, and their biggest complaint is, I never wanted kids. I didn't have kids. So why am I paying for it? And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with the kids. It's got to do with you were born biologically as a female.
Yeah.
And what it does is when that system shut down, it takes your main hormone with it that helps your body
Yeah.
function at optimal level. Doesn't have anything to do whether you want to use I call it a factory
Yeah.
for production or not. There's no choice.
Relevant.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. And
irrelevant.
is it really as simple then as, your body is producing hormones in this ratio? So because your body is designed to do that, now you get the impact of this as a result of it, because it's going to change at some point. And
Yes.
it's like your body, I guess our bodies are just doing the thing that they're designed to do.
Yeah. But the thing is, there's not been enough study on women to understand the full impact of estrogen decline. I'm hoping in the next 10 years, we will have a lot more, because until recently, women will go, oh, I'm having this. And I know it's not related to menopause.
Yeah.
We've now
We know
got,
that. Yeah.
yeah, in the last 10 years, we've gone from 10 common symptoms to hitting 40, 45. And as I said, with each person is different.
Mm.
And there are 25% of women, lucky few, who hardly feel the impact.
Mm.
I think they need to be studied.
Well, surely. Yeah. Yeah. What is it
But
that their body has mastered
yeah,
that
they
we can
do
all
go,
get a bit of,
yeah,
actually? Yeah.
they do go through menopause, but they hardly feel the impact.
Mm.
And those few are the lucky few, but 75% of us feel the impact to varying degrees.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's not what I experience is not what the next person is going to experience. Some people say my biggest issue is night sweats or hot
Mm.
flushes, because I've got a Facebook group of over 82,000 menopausal women.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
so
quite a good sample size.
yeah, that's a good. So you see people, everybody's got their own different thing they struggle with. And so it differs for each person, which
Mm.
makes it, I guess, difficult for medical practitioners because it doesn't follow any rhyme or reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people come and say, my mom had this, my sister had this, but how come I have this? I said, that's the big, when it comes to menopause, don't go do no, focus on you.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
your body dealing with estrogen decline? It's different.
Mm.
And forget mom and forget sister. Each person experiences, and our diets and everything, lifestyle also
Mm.
affects how we go through menopause as well. So it's a whole
Yeah.
wide, I think, impact. And what I want women to understand is there's nothing wrong with you if your experience is unique to the next person, if it's even is unique to everyone else, because we're all unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be different. So if anybody tries to put you in a box and say, no, you're not going through menopause because you don't have this and that, call them up, because it differs for each person. Yeah.
And I like that you started then just to allude to kind of lifestyle and diet things, because I think it might be useful just to talk about some things that actively we can do to make things a bit easier for ourselves. But before that, I've got a question that's kind of nagging away in my brain, and it may or may not be something you can answer. But it kind of feels like it's a question I want to throw out there, and then maybe we can see where we go with it. But if we're kind of talking about it's a female reproductive system that is responsible for the hormone levels that go on in our body. And again, I don't know if you would know this, but I'm really curious then about what about people who are born intersex, whose kind of reproductive systems and are different. But and I was kind of like, and you may or like I say, you may or may not know much about that, because I also know the medical landscape is woefully under-resourced when it
Lacking
comes to
on that.
research into intersex people. So I just thought, I didn't know if you had any kind of
No,
insight.
this is just a guess because I said I
Mm,
haven't read any research. I haven't researched into intersex, nor have I worked with anybody that's
yeah,
come to me
fair
that's
enough.
intersex. Uh, so, but it depends on their internals if
Mm,
they do have, because it is the ovaries that
yeah,
produce estrogen.
yeah.
So that's why, and it's the brain that tells the ovaries to produce estrogen. That's what with us. That's how we get our monthly cycle and all that.
Mm,
If the intersex person has got ovaries that are producing estrogen, and then they also have testicle organs as well, depending on how much estrogen they are producing
mm,
and how much testosterone they are producing, they will feel the impact. It might not be as bad as somebody that's
yeah,
100% dependent on, because
yeah,
women, yeah, before menopause premenopausal women produce 3 times more testosterone than estrogen.
right.
So if you're intersex and your testosterone is still high and your estrogen drops, you
You could
will
have
feel the
a whole
impact, but
host of other,
yeah,
yeah,
you still be in a better place than a woman who, yeah, everything is
yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah. Because I just find that curious, because I just think it's one of those points, isn't it, of nuance. And again, it comes back to your point exactly across all of this, is like it's a really individual experience. And I guess regardless of the hardware, like the factories that we've got going on, it's the combination of that relationship between our organs, as in the brain and the reproductive system, and how it communicates with each other. And that's such an individual experience, and yet it is going to be applicable, regardless of our kind of our sex, essentially. It's just whatever we've got going on that the hormones are going to get us.
And no one tells you the important role of hormones till, in fact, I didn't think about it till I went through
Never.
menopause.
Yeah,
Never thought
quite.
about it. And I never thought every day I woke up and everything I did was because my hormones were working well. I guess the people that actually appreciate the impact of hormones are people that have PCOS, who women that are already having their hormones out of whack.
Right.
Those are the people that start realizing that, oh, it plays a lot of role in my day-to-day and quality of life. For the average person, we just get on with life and we think, oh no, we're living healthy, we're doing this, we're doing that, so that's fine. And your hormones come into play and you realize, oh, the big boss was the hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been helping everything, even your liver. Your liver is controlled. Your gut bacteria. If estrogen drops, your gut bacteria and the whole setup just goes out of whack. So women have
Interesting.
bloating. So almost every organ in your body, from your
Wow.
heart to your liver to your gut, everything. I can't think of anything. Your muscles, you lose muscle mass.
Yes.
So yeah, you lose muscle mass, you start gaining more fat because your body is storing fat for estrogen. It's everything in your body changes. Your eyes is not as clear. I wear glasses now. I can't even
Yeah.
avoid it. I can't read without it.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? And something that stood up with us. So just you said so PCOS, what's that?
PCOS, I have to get the full this thing. I
Mm,
usually use abbreviations, so my brain is still in menopausal mode.
that's all
It's
right.
yeah. It's a condition where women produce more androgynous hormones than
Right. Okay.
the female hormones, and they start experiencing it from puberties where they hit full puberty, because the high level of estrogen and all the hormones you actually start in puberty.
Right.
So before puberty we don't have high levels of estrogen, so it's almost like puberty is when you start feeling all this raging of
Makes
hormones, it
sense. Yeah.
settles. Then you go through menopause, which is your second puberty, is like shutting the door.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's one thing I tell women which is funny, which is they go, "Oh, I've got no libido anymore. I feel asexual. I don't feel like a woman. I don't feel like I want to be intimate with anybody. I don't have those feelings anymore." And I used to go, yeah, nature's ways. Like you're playing with this snotty-nosed boy who's your best friend. Then puberty hits, and you wake up one morning and think, oh, he's quite cute. He wakes up and go, she's quite cute. But with boys, it doesn't get switched off. But with girls, as soon as you hit puberty, nature goes, oh, you can't have babies anymore. So you turn around and your husband's turned into that snotty-nosed boy. And he's
Yeah.
just your best friend now.
Yeah.
You don't have those feelings anymore because he's like been switched off.
So that I find fascinating, and without going into a complete other angle, but there was
Yeah.
another podcast episode that I've really recently recorded with someone called Aubrey Lancaster, who's a sex educator, and she specializes in asexuality, but uh, she's incredible. And she talks all about kind of from maintaining healthy relationships in that regard, understanding the difference between libido, desire, pleasure, and all of those different things, and how you can kind of um, find ways to, yes, so you may experience low libido, but there may still be things that bring you pleasure, and how do you build a relationship around sharing pleasure that
Yeah.
doesn't center on libido.
Yeah.
So I think just as a really nice complementary episode to this one, if that's something that people are listening to this thinking, yeah, that's me, we don't necessarily have to lean into like that kind of narrative of like, get the spark back. It's like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
there's nothing wrong with you. Your body's just doing its body
Whole
thing,
thing.
but you can think about it in a different way and create something different in your own relationship that is fulfilling to you, that maybe doesn't rely so heavily on you needing to feel like you've got to perform.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely. So and that's what I tell people as well. It's if you go past the nature part, you can actually nature does its own part, and you can nurture another relationship with yourself and
Yeah.
your desire, and if you want to continue that. So
Yeah.
it doesn't just go away unless you
Yeah.
want it to, you know. So there
And
are
that's
other
also
ways. There is
perfectly
a
acceptable
choice.
too.
Yeah, there's a choice at the end of the day. Yeah.
Totally. That's awesome. So just then to kind of start giving some kind of actionable things for people then, what would you say for someone listening to this going, oh my God, I am in the throes of perimenopause. In fact, I can ask this for myself. I'm in the throes of perimenopause. What kind of things should I be focusing on that are going to help me with like maybe some of the physical things around the sweats and the kind of the fatigue, or maybe the emotional side of things? What are the kind of the key things that you're like, definitely pay attention to these things?
Okay, so the gold standard for the sweats and stuff is HRT.
Okay.
I've done a lot of research. I haven't found anything that helps better than HRT because it helps boost your hormones. But as we know, not everyone wants to take HRT, and not everyone is a good candidate for HRT. So what are the alternatives? We have herbs, which are phytoestrogens. So they mimic the effect of estrogen. So they will help boost. And one of them is ashwagandha, that really is a good phytoestrogen. And then you have black horse. But with all those things, it's better because I do recommend them, but I would say look at your own health background because they are herbs, and they can also be contraindication because some people go, it's natural. Because it's
Yeah.
natural doesn't mean that it might not have counterindication to you.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for is the strong ones, and it's also red clover. That's a strong phytoestrogen as well. So you take all that, and you also look at your diet. That's a big factor. They've done a lot of research, and a lot of countries where women do not struggle with menopause symptoms is really down to their diets and lifestyle. So if anybody came to me saying, I can't take HRT, I do advise diet, lifestyle, and working on your mindset. Because you go to countries where women actually focus on emotional well-being, you find out that the women who are emotionally balanced, they don't have really difficult symptoms of, because if you're stressed out, you will have night sweats. Whether you're on HRT, you still will be struggling with night sweats. You still be struggling with sleepless nights. So they found out that women who work on, because I've worked with women who are not on HRT, can't take HRT due to health, and they've just worked on their mind. They've just worked on getting that balance where they can manage their stress, they can manage their emotion, they have anxiety, low moods, and they've come back saying, my hot flushes dropped by 80%. And I go, with the right food, which is, you don't want to cut out any food group. At this point, your body is not functioning on 100% like it used to. So cutting out any food group is actually creating a deficit to your body. But you want that food group to be the healthiest. That's the difference. So you now start thinking about what you eat. And a big factor is stop smoking. And if you can, limit alcohol to as little as you can. Like I don't drink anymore. And with just those, taking out smoking, taking out alcohol, eating well, and working with your emotion, naturally, you can practically eliminate 80% of your symptoms. And with 80% gone, you can manage the 20% without. So those are things you can do without HRT. And sometimes you even need it with HRT. So for me, those are my recommendation.
Fantastic.
And what else did I want to add when it comes to, even if women want to start and don't want to go on to HRT immediately as well, they can start with those red clover, and there's also isoflavones, which if you can't take HRT, I would not advise that you take, because they do mimic estrogen.
Right.
Well, yeah. So, but you can start with those and start with menopause supplements. They do help to a level, but you will know when that level comes, because after a while you start feeling like, oh, they don't help anymore. Those are
Right.
starting, yeah, those are starting
Yeah.
point. They help till you get to that point where you go, no, my body actually needs HRC now. So
Yeah.
you don't have to jump on it immediately, but there's no risk to starting HRT early. is up to each individual. And there's, as I said, I don't prescribe HRT, but I believe that is a personal choice when you do your research. And if you want to get on it, fine. If you don't want to, you've got all this natural means to help you as well. But yeah, your diet is a big deal. And for general well-being, your exercise is a big deal too. Though people don't want to talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah. And what about sleep? How important is sleep?
Very, very important. But without the other two, you can't focus on, without focusing on your emotion, you will have problem with sleep. So if you
Right.
deal with your emotion, you sleep better. If you exercise, it helps with your emotion, you sleep better. Almost everything of those will help you sleep better.
Right.
So, but sleep is a priority, is a natural way of fixing your body. It's like switching off the computer and booting it back. It will fix any bugs it picks. So if you're not sleeping properly, yeah, definitely your menopause
Yeah.
symptoms will be 10 times worse. So that's the medicine, but you have to do things together.
To remove the barriers to help
Yes,
you get a
together.
good night's sleep so your body
Yeah.
can do its overhaul. Okay, awesome. So what I'm sure there'll be people listening to this thinking like, okay, we know everyone's an individual, so actually the best thing for someone to do is to reach out to you and have a conversation about their specific combination of symptoms and feelings and experiences. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect?
Okay, so I have a Facebook group, and I have a Facebook page, which is Trish the Menopause Coach. And I also, if you click there, you can get in touch with me. My phone number is there and everything. And I have a website as well, which is Trish the Menopause Coach. And I offer free consults where we talk about how you're experiencing it and what you want to do, how you want to take it forward. I also offer advisory service. So you go to the doctor and you're in the driving seat because, as I said, 41% of university do not train doctors on menopause and they expect them to learn it on the job. So a lot of doctors, while you're talking to them, they are Googling things to make sense of it. And so with me, because I research, I spend my whole day on this, I would actually do get all your information, help you do your research where we put a list of your benefits to your risk. So when you go to the doctor, you're making an informed decision that you're confident about. It's not the fact that, oh, my doctor gave me HRT, I'm a bit scared because of the information I read. You now have all the information to hand. So that's a service I give as well. And you can get me on my website. You can get me on Facebook, just Trish the Menopause Coach. I'm also on Google Business. And so you can find me on Google. You can find me on TikTok. There's a new thing I've just, so
Oh,
yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, my daughter's helping with that, not really but yeah. So I'm easily just put Trish the Menopause Coach and you'll be able to find me. And as I said, you get a free 20 minutes chat with me to see how I can help you. And if it's just to give you tips to help you, on your menopause journey, then fine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trish. Is there anything else that you would like to say that you haven't had an opportunity to say?
Um, Apart from when it comes to working with individual, that's my passion. But also, if any organization feels that they need a menopause awareness training that's not just focused on policies, because I do help with policies and all that, but sometimes those are documents people just tick box to say we have a policy, and they are really into supporting their staff to make sure that they know what's happening, then they should get in touch with me. And I tell people it's not just about women. When I do my menopause awareness training, is women, men, because you will be working with someone. You will either be a partner to someone that's going through menopause. And I have a lot of men who've reached out to me saying, how do I support my partner?
Yeah.
So when I go to this menopause, I actually explain the science behind it. And a lot of men do go, oh, now I understand what she's going through. I've even had a person come to me saying, I need to go apologize to my partner because I thought it's just, you stop a menstrual cycle. Why are you just whinging?
Yeah.
And when
Why
I
are you
showed
so
them,
angry?
then I have a slide where I show the woman's body and all the impact, and they go, yeah. So
Brilliant.
I do give menopause awareness training that goes beyond just making people compliant. It's more about also empowering your staff, and which in the long run boost morale and make make it a more female friendly environment where people feel like people really understand what I'm talking about. It's not a feeling. The person that came to talk had a science behind it, so they understand. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trish Rimmer, Trish, the menopause coach. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been
Oh,
fantastic to have you along.
oh, thank you for having me.